since he wore purple all the time, could we legally call him the Grapist?
Constantly, that's just the entirety of his miniseries looking for issues.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another fine episode of the happy 616th Marvel Family Podcast. Welcome to our 51st episode. Isn't that great, everybody?
Heck yeah.
Yay. I know. It's a wonder that we're still going on here. But welcome to our 51st episode, talking about why we love/hate Daredevil. Is this an attempt to try to get attention right before the new show Daredevil Born Again comes out?
No.
Absolutely. If you were thinking that's exactly what the plan was. Although
new show, never heard of it.
Yeah, they're lying, but they're being nice to me, and I very much appreciate that. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to be talking a little bit about Daredevil, why we love him, or why we hate him. It's got a dumb costume, but people may like that. So we're gonna find out. We're gonna figure that out today. Now, before we get into our lovings and our hatings of the devil himself, I'd like to introduce the people, the cast today of who we have to speak. As always, I'm your host, the Funny Hatter, and today I have my co-host, Space Wiz, the Christopher, the Z-Man.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, and today we have two very special guests that are going to be talking about Daredevil today. We have our new and upcoming cartoon post. Say hello.
Hello, salutations. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. And we have our Star Lee. Is there any relation to Stan Lee there by any chance?
No, not at all. But hi, I am your friendly neighborhood has no idea about comics or comic book films. So, hi.
Normie. Very
good.
good.
Wife. I wish I were the same.
Yes.
I may or may not be in a similar boat.
Don't worry, Chris. You're not the only one who's been cursed with knowledge. Alrighty. So, we're going to get started today, and I will have this metaphorical microphone here. So the way that we do things over here, we used to have a operation system to where like we just give people turns to just talk for like a little bit, and then we kind of just pass the microphone. But that was the people on here didn't like that, especially one named Christopher, where he says chaos reigns, and unfortunately, I agree with that. Now. So how this is gonna work is that I'm going to toss this imaginary microphone. I'm going to throw it, I'm going to chuck it to the ground, and someone's going to pick it up and just start talking. Now, we are on what we call chaos rules, to where anybody can talk and anybody can interrupt each other, just like in real life, just keep it relative. So here's this microphone. I'm going to chuck it in someone's direction. If it hits you, I don't care. That's your fault. You got in the way of it.
You signed the waiver,
just said,
okay.
Yeah, you signed the waiver. You signed a contract.
Wait, what waiver?
Yeah, shush. Anyway, I'm going to chuck this microphone, and you get to pick it up, and you just talk about Daredevil. And by the way, if you talk about Daredevil, you have to say, since we're on this specific episode, why you either love/hate Daredevil. So you can say, like, what I love about Daredevil, or who I hate? Daredevil!
All right,
and you have to say it in such a dramatic fashion. That's the rule. I don't make them. Actually, I do. I'm just pretending. So anyway, here's the microphone. Go ahead. Here, get it. Someone, pick it up.
Ow,
go talk about Daredevil. Good.
All right.
Someone start talking, or I'll take it.
All right, I love Daredevil. I think it's a very good character. So I just recently started watching the Daredevil show like on Netflix. But I remember back in like when I was a kid, my first introduction to the character was actually the Spider-Man animated series back in like the 90s. Ooh. Yeah, and I had like on DVD the crossover episodes with Daredevil, and on the DVD. I remember on the DVD in the special features, Stan Lee had like this little behind the scenes thing where we talked about like when he created the character and all that stuff. And he has for years always talked about how like when he was creating the character, he was like very worried and whatnot about like will people think it's like a parody of like blind people and stuff like that, because blind people can't really do all these like superhuman, almost not really superhuman, but almost superhuman type stuff that he can and whatnot, and like like that. But the thing is, after he created the character, he started getting tons of like fan mail and stuff by new fans of Marvel who are in like blind people like communities and stuff like that. And I think the fact that he did this thing where he created something that he was really nervous about creating, but it ended up bringing tons of brand new fans of the people that he was worried about possibly offending. The fact that they loved it, I think, shows how great of a character Daredevil is.
Absolutely, yeah. The power of turning something like that, like a disability like that, into something like a strength, I think, is really a powerful story. And I can understand like sort of the nervousness of like creating a character like that and stuff, and sort of worrying about how people that are affected by that might take it. But yeah, that it's really speaks to the power and awesomeness of Daredevil that has so many different fans and everything like that. Yeah, that the blind people can appreciate sort of this representation and stuff like that, and sort of the coolness of Daredevil. I mean, come on, he's like one of the coolest comic characters we got out there. So it's nice to see.
Yeah,
and it's even more powerful if you can capitalize off of it.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
What were you saying, sir?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No, I was saying that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying.
I was saying representation is extremely important in media. So something like Daredevil, I know very little about. As I said earlier at the top, I'm not really. I'm a normie, but I do like understand the need for representation. And as somebody who's disabled, seeing disabled characters as the leads in features instead of like the side character that we're supposed to feel sorry for is always really empowering.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's really right, guys. He's not coming back for the next season. It's all good now. Yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, but as I was saying, yeah, it is really really powerful. Having representation like that, I think it's really important and stuff, and how like characters are represented and everything, and sort of how disabilities can be represented and stuff like that. That it's not just like a pity party, but there's actual character to there, besides just like a person to like look down upon or whatever, but somebody to really look up to and to inspire, no matter who they are. So I think that's always really very meaningful, and I think that's one of the great things about the character. Yeah, just sort of what he's become and what he sort of symbolizes, and sort of the just everything about him. Yeah, just really freaking cool, man.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because like when it comes to like representing people or like a certain like demographic, it pisses me off like whenever like people just like adhere, especially like Hollywood, just adhere to just like the stereotypes of like what a certain demographic like may be. So like let's say for example, if we have like Matt Murdock who's blind, we don't have him just be like Mr. Magoo, like just going like oh what's this, and he's just getting himself into trouble like because he just can't see anything. But instead, like what the writers have done, like with Daredevil over the years, like the various writers of Daredevil in like Marvel Comics, it's just that they use that disability like as like one of his strengths, to where he overcomes certain conflicts and turns out to become a stronger character because he doesn't let obstacles get in his way, and he's a very determined character too. There's a
sounds like a superpower for him.
Yeah. That it's funny that you mentioned that, because like I remember like reading something like the other day, like talking about like how Daredevil is like one of like the very few characters in Marvel that can't have his mind read, because he's so focused on everything around him just to like map out everything in his head. It's like you're not getting any input. It's like if you're trying to like learn like some dark secrets of like say like a Kingpin, right? It's probably gonna like work on him because like of like all the things that like troubles him as a kid, right? That's gonna be like on his mind. But since Daredevil has to map out everything in his head, all you're just gonna pick up is like bird chirping, cars driving,
get a whole like little audio drama, just
water dripping everywhere. Yeah. You're just basically gonna hear like one big ambience in your head. It's like this is useless. I can't get anything on this guy. So yeah, I think like although I guess it's kind of a joke that you can't read Daredevil's mind. It does also in turn show like how determined and how focused he is as a character, like on his skill set and his determination and like his goals. It definitely tells like a lot about like the character. There's a
You could also say that like that's kind of why Wilson Fisk in Daredevil season 1, like kind of why his army and empire kind of fell, because like he got distracted with like romance and all that stuff, and even like his own allies were like starting to tone on him because of that, as opposed to Daredevil. Like he's not just the crime fighter, but he is a very focused guy who is always like thinking of what needs to be thought about and stuff.
Yeah, you're
right. Sorry, go ahead.
Unlike me.
Yeah.
The same.
I'm actually glad that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I really appreciate that they represent him with his white tipped cane. It's important to see like disabled characters using accessibility devices and not being shamed for it.
That's a nice touch.
Well, that and Daredevil also kind of has to use that. Otherwise, if he's just walking around, you said you don't care about spoilers, right? Cartoon Post.
Yeah, I don't. I've already heard some of them.
Okay. Well, in season 3, like he doesn't like really care about being Matt Murdock when he like comes back, and he doesn't use a cane because he's like disguising himself as someone who can see, and he has to like figure out like how like people look a certain way, or like how to like steer his head in a direction. But like for the most
Oh, that's very interesting.
yeah, but for most of the time, like he just uses a cane because it's just incognito for him. But yeah, I mean it's
Not to like.
Oh, go ahead.
Not to like sidetrack or anything, but that kind of reminds me of like I've seen like a similar kind of like character Soyak or whatever, where like the main character is like basically pretending like he's not blind, because like a show that I've grown up with watching, Doctor Who, they had like a season or whatever where like for a few episodes the main character, the Doctor, he goes blind, but he doesn't want his people around him to know he's blind, so he like kind of tries to pretend like he isn't. And so yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Interesting like character arc.
Yeah,
Reminds me of that.
pretty cool. I'm gonna take the microphone here really quick because I just had this Daredevil story on my mind. I forgot the name of it. I want to say it's Cold Day in Hell. I'm pretty sure it's wrong, but so somebody beat me up and correct me if you know the proper one, if you ever find me. But you know what I love about Daredevil? There's a particular story. It's more of a short story of like a big winter hits New York. You could probably even say it's like a blizzard. Everything is covered in snow. Everybody doesn't want to go outside. Everyone's miserable and everything. And yeah, where have I heard this one before, right?
Relatable.
But one day Daredevil catches wind that like a little girl in the hospital needs a heart transplant. And like traffic is just piled up. It is like just nearly impossible to like navigate like through New York. So what Daredevil does, he goes to like from one hospital, I want to say like one hospital, but definitely one place, and he like tapes up like a heart in a box and just starts like jumping like from like rooftop to rooftop to transport this heart to this little girl to have like surgery in time. Otherwise, like it's a ticking clock. It's not like she's gonna like die immediately. It's not like in a video game you got like 2 minutes to like swing across the city as like Spider-Man to like help like this character get like a certain item. But he's very determined in like getting this heart to like this hospital to save this little girl. And just by simply doing that, and like nobody's even like really asking him to do this, he kind of just volunteers to do it, and nobody's really watching him. That's like definitely like one of like the big things that like makes Matt Murdock a hero. He's a very willful, very I keep using the goddamn word determined, but that's what he is. He's a very focused superhero, and like it really shows that he truly like cares about people. I mean, sure, he gets like really brutal in like the way that he fights crime, but he also has like one of the things that Joseph brought up, like in the back, in the behind the scenes, behind us, where like his he's right behind you, isn't he? But like, since Daredevil is a man of faith, of the Catholic faith, he holds strongly on to like one of the sins, like "Thou shalt not kill," which I find to be interesting because like both the comics and especially the show play on how Daredevil kind of likes hurting people, not like being like a sadist or anything, but he likes hurt me. A good sadist says no.
Almost gives him kind of like an anti-hero vibe almost at times.
Yeah, it kind of goes in that direction, but I think that's what makes Daredevil an interesting like superhero, because there's certain lines he doesn't cross. It's not like the Punisher, the way he says like you're dead. Like Daredevil will like stop to try to like talk to people if he gets the chance to.
And he does believe in like redemption and stuff too.
Yeah, he does. But yeah, like it. But the themes do play on like, does he genuinely enjoy like hurting people, like bad people who deserve to be hurt? Because there is like that one scene like where he explains to Foggy in the show when he says like he's been listening to like his neighbor who's been like assaulting his daughter like at night, and then he just had enough. To where like he stalks him and beats the living shit out of him, and then he tells him like, I never slept better until after that night. And it's just an interesting way to have like motivations of being a superhero, because you have like say like Batman, to where like he started out as like on a quest of vengeance. It's basically just hurting criminals and hoping he can sleep better at night, and then he evolves into learning that he needs to be better than that. He needs to be a symbol for his city, which I think is kind of similar to Daredevil, because he does harness a lot of pain from like his trauma as like a blind kid and trying to like figure out how to like live in New York, and then get over his dad being killed by like a crime organization, which that does confuse me as to like whether or not he like really started out like the same way that kind of like Batman did. There's just like it's vengeance first and then help people. And the reason why I say that is because of his Catholic faith. Like, does he? Because like with Batman, like we mentioned before, it was just about revenge. Like just beat people up, call it a night, go to bed. But with Daredevil, he does hold on to that virtue of redemption and having love for other people, having love for thy neighbor, right? But like which one of the two, and I could have explained this probably a lot better, but which one of the two was like the bigger motivator to become Daredevil? Like, was it fighting crime, or was it having more like love and like redemption in his heart, of like the compassion versus the vengeance themes that Daredevil has? So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that was actually like one of my like binge watching Daredevil, the Netflix show. That's been like one of my favorite themes and like personal inner conflicts and stuff like that in the show, and all that stuff. And also the redemption thing too, because like he does seemingly enjoy holding the criminals, but he doesn't want to kill. And one of my favorite also moments so far in season 2, which I'm currently like halfway through, is him and the Punisher kind of like when they had a like argument or whatever. Yeah. Like, yeah, how like he was coming at it from like, but even these criminals, there could be like even a small like 1% of goodness inside them that could if given the opportunity to have a second chance at doing stuff, could make it so that they change their ways. But if you kill them like the Punisher does, that's gone. That chance is gone. And that's just very interesting, and like it's very nuanced how like you got this hero or this character who like does love holding criminals, but he doesn't want to kill them because he believes it would be wild.
There's not a lot of like characters that are like super like necessarily like religiously motivated, especially in like Marvel. Like there are characters that have like religion and stuff like that, but like it's like mostly like Matt is like the prime example of like somebody that's like influenced by his faith and sort of has to like balance and battle sort of these inward questions of like what he's doing is right and stuff like that. So I always thought that was really interesting sort of like thing to dive into with his character as well. He has like a lot of like different layers and stuff to dissect, and I feel like that's a really strong like interesting layer too, sort of the importance of his faith and sort of what he sort of like does with that, and how he like sort of how that figures into sort of like his own like personal philosophies as a vigilante and stuff like that. So I think that's always something interesting, and especially season 2 I think like really dives a lot into that. Season 3 as well I'd say too, maybe even just the whole series, I don't know. But season 2 especially, sort of this like clash between like Punisher and Daredevil. You know, Punisher, this guy that's willing to, you know, cross the line and stuff no matter what to kill the bad people, but Daredevil isn't willing to cross that line and everything, and sees a different path, and you know, sort of the redemption sort of path. So I always found that was really interesting, and for me, one of the best parts of season 2 is definitely, you know, the sort of the back and forth between Punisher and Daredevil is a lot of fun.
And it also kind of gives Daredevil like a reason to have like a no-kill rule, because a lot of heroes do tend to have a no-kill rule, but some people kind of think like it could be kind of like argued whether it's actually that important to the character. But with like the faith and religion thing, it is actually like a very important thing to the character of Daredevil.
The whole no-kill thing
really cool.
is very much like a big thing in like especially DC, but Marvel not as much. But Spider-Man and especially Daredevil are like the two like prime examples of like the two guys that don't. Yeah. yeah. Tony's like, I'm just gonna blow up this guy real quick. Who cares? You know, drop a nuke on him.
Instant kill.
Jarvis, where's my tactical nuke? Oh, sorry. You were gonna say something.
I was just saying, thou shalt not kill is one of the the 10 Commandments, so I understand why a Catholic-leaning character would be apprehensive to killing. However, I think beating the shit out of people is also against the
You
Bible.
didn't read that part of the Bible.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, everyone picks and chooses what they want,
true.
apparently, so... But not to make this a political podcast.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, it's technically not political if you're just talking within the context of the confines of the comic books. Like, say, for example, like Daredevil's faith versus, like, say, like Moon Knight's faith, right? Where Daredevil kind of has to, like, just guess, like, what God wants. Mark Spector does not get that luxury.
He grows up Jewish, then he like comes to realize that there's like Egyptian gods out there and stuff. So it's sort of like an interesting sort of like discussion of faith and stuff like that. Of like actually like, you know, having the strong certification of like, oh, this is like what actually exists out there is really interesting. Sort of clash there. It's fun, but Matt doesn't have that.
Speaking of, I wonder. Oops, sorry.
I'll be really quick about this. What I was trying to get at was like, since the presence, which I think that's what God is called in Marvel, isn't really around all that much. Khonshu for Moon Knight he is constantly telling him like, hey, I need you to go like beat up this werewolf because like he's like an abomination on the planet. Or hey, Mark, go get me some cigarettes. It's interesting to see how you have like that dynamic between like what does your faith want you to do versus determined faith wants you to do this, which I feel like something that's
speaking of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of the point that you made with Moon Knight, how like he kind of like didn't really have a choice, like with the religion thing. I wonder. I'm sure they've had crossovers in the comics and stuff like that. That I haven't seen, but like I wonder what Daredevil thinks of meeting Thor, who is like literally a Greek mythology god or whatever. Like, I wonder what he thinks of that.
I can't really remember like any.
You know,
there's got to be something out there, but I can't ever remember like them. Like obviously they're both on the Avengers, so they definitely had some interaction. But yeah, that's a good point. I do wonder like how like Matt like perceives like Thor. Is like, whoa, who is this guy? That's not God.
You know, that's something I'm disappointed in. Like, I'm pretty sure there's got to be something to where, like, people of, like, certain faiths or certain backgrounds start questioning their faith because, like, actual gods are showing up on the planet. But I haven't seen anything like that, which I feel like that's such, like, a shame to, like, just throw away. Maybe it's just the writers being cowards because, like, oh, yeah, this god exists. It's like, does this go against, like, Yahweh or, like, Jehovah in, like, some depictions? And people are just, and the writers are just like,
Yeah.
Hey, Thor, Spider-Man, and Thor are going to be in a comic book together. Do you guys want to read that?
Yeah.
And he's like, no.
But yeah, and that can make it's such an
there's, like,
interesting
definitely,
story too to like tackle that.
Comics and stuff like the whole like the basis of Love and Thunder, the God Butcher stuff is very much like sort of an analysis of faith and everything. It doesn't quite hit it. It hit it quite well in the movie, but in the comic, it's much more of a compelling sort of discussion of like faith and everything. But it's true that you'd think there'd be more sort of like interesting sort of like analysis of like you know like Daredevil meeting Thor or something like that that would be interesting sort of like sort of what the mental dialogue would be there of like how you like sort of reason with that like a god existing outside of like your god that you follow is interesting.
Yeah, it's weird because like I haven't seen anything of Marvel comics or even like DC comics like do anything of like say like, oh, we have like an actual god from an actual religion that happened like at a certain time is here now. They exist. They can like shake the heavens, and there's like no like fucking race war or going on, or like some kind of like crusade that's going on because like they're saying like, oh, that's like a false god, or that person's not who they say they are, and like it feels like to me like if there was like actual like proof of actual gods coming to Earth or like they re-emerge on Earth, there would be a lot more conflict that would actually happen rather than just like Thor showing up one day and like say like I don't know like the Middle East just saying like just brushing him off. It's like no, that's not actually Thor.
You guys think maybe like the reason could be that like Thor in Marvel and stuff is kind of like more like an alien because he's basically like a being that comes from like another planet, kind of like Superman in DC.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
possibly.
I mean, you can still be an alien and you can still be a god. I mean, they even like talk about that like with I want to say it's either DC or Marvel like talk about like the Olympian pantheon that like comes to Earth. Like they were from like a different planet and then they used Earth as basically like a playground and like a science lab to just like mess with life and then like yeah, it's like well you worship me now because I created you. And
all right,
people are like just,
no problem.
Okay, they're on board. And then, like, when they get bored, they just go back to their planet. Kind of like in DC with the new gods, like from Apocalypse, to where they're actual gods. They're aliens, but like they have the power to like create things. And they go to Earth, and they're like, I got bored. I'm just gonna go back home, and you guys can just do whatever you want.
But at what point does a god stop being a god?
That's
question.
a good
Yeah,
question.
that's the question.
Because I'd say, at least with Thor, I know he's technically the god of thunder, but Norse mythology has fallen into mythology rather than complete, current canon. So, at that point, is Thor still a god in our eyes, or is he just... an alien or a superhuman being. Because he's not worshipped as much as he used to be.
They did something about that. And Christopher, I think you probably know this a lot better, but like it was like when Thor fights Gore to stop him from killing like gods like from multiple places. They talk about like in the comics like because Gore started killing like gods on certain planets, like the planets started like they started going downhill. And then like Thor realizes like, oh, like these planets actually like need like some kind of like omnipotent like monitor to make sure that things are going smoothly over there. Otherwise, things just kind of go to shit. So with your question of like, when does a god stop being a god? I think the Marvel kind of subtly answers the question of people just looking at Thor just as a superhero rather than like worshiping him as like a religious deity. It's more like the form of worship like turns more into like buying like merchandise, like say like, oh, a Thor t-shirt or a Thor hammer, and like, oh, Thor is like my favorite superhero, and not going to like a church or like some place of worship and like praying to him. Because I feel like the type of worship kind of just evolved and nobody really touched upon it, at least to my knowledge. I kind of hope that somebody proves me wrong, like some writer of like writing Thor or Moon Knight like talks about like the evolution of worship, because I think that's a really like missed opportunity to have in comics, especially even like for Daredevil, because like holding on to religion like in older religious practices of like Catholicism, going to church, like how those values are still held up by like current day Catholics, Christians, or anybody that's like along the lines of like the Catholic faith. They still go to church. They're supposed to follow the 10 Commandments, and then that's what like keeps them in like their realm of religion, versus actual gods that are on Earth and people just praising and singing about them like whenever they show up, but they're not actually like partaking in like what we would consider religious practices. They're just there to cheer them on rather than just like pray and hope that they're being listened to.
Yeah, it definitely is like an interesting sort of like analysis. I feel like that's sort of like a missed opportunity for like I'm not really caught up with like, I've never read like every single Thor comic, but I'm sure there's probably like some sort of discussion outside of just like the discussion of like faith and everything and the God Butcher stuff. But it feels like it would be like a missed opportunity though, like if that's not really something they've really like dove into like in a deeper sort of level in like a Thor run. So that'd be kind of fun to like sort of see like sort of how like Thor is perceived now as like, you know, just like a hero more so than like a god and everything. I think that's so an interesting thread to pull on, honestly.
I can.
And this conversation just like makes me really wish that like Thor: Love and Thunder was like actually more focused on the God Butcher, because like that was like the best part of the movie, and it was only like 3 minutes.
I can picture.
He would have done something really interesting with it. Sorry.
I can picture a villain saying something along the lines of, "When does a god cease to be a god? When he has no one left to worship him."
Yeah,
man, that would have been like so cool to see like in Thor.
Yeah.
But no, let's just make Thor the funny man. He makes everyone laugh.
Funny Thor.
Let's just do that. Funny Thor. Yeah.
I must say I did like Ragnarok, but yeah, he really
Ragnarok.
have been overdoing it.
I appreciate that film a lot. But this is as somebody who, again, has not read the comics. I didn't see the previous Thor films.
That's all you need.
I mostly went to see it because it had a hot lady in armor.
That's a good reason to see it, honestly.
And Immigrant Song was in the
all
trailer.
you need, honestly.
So
That's such a
I
good
was
song.
like, okay, I want to go see this now.
The thing about Thor Ragnarok is that it had a lot more of a balance between like the comedy and the like serious like, because there were some serious moments and stuff like that, as opposed to like Thor: Love and Thunder, and in my opinion, a lot of like modern MCU movies, like there's not really as much of a balance as there should be. Like a lot of it is just like constant like comedy and jokes and stuff like that. And to bring it back to Daredevil, like when I was binge watching for the very first time the Netflix show Daredevil, I found it really refreshing, because like I was watching it and I was like, this is like the same like universe as like Thor: Love and Thunder, like very different tone and everything, just like very refreshing. And it's funny too that we've also mentioned DC while talking in this podcast because I like when watching the show, I kind of it came to me like Hell's Kitchen in the show kind of feels like the Gotham of New York, and I was talking to someone that I know at IOL about how I've been binge watching Daredevil, and they were like, "Oh, so you're a big DC fan?" I was like, "Oh, no, it's actually Marvel." But that's the thing because like it doesn't really feel like every Marvel thing, and so like kind of refreshing.
I think that's because, at least from the films that I've seen, again, not very many of them, but between DC and Marvel, DC tends to have the more grim, dark feeling, while Marvel is more, I guess, kid-friendly.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Not to say the films are for kids. Please stop showing these violent films to kids. That's just a personal opinion of mine. But, like, even films like Deadpool, which are like rated R, are still not grimdark. They're primarily comedic with dramatic moments. So I think that's the main difference and why personally I prefer some Marvel films to the DC films that I've seen, because I like seeing a bit of humor in things, some levity. And I prefer levity, colors and things that are bright and more visually stimulating rather than the grim dark monochrome kind of feel and aesthetic of a lot of DC films. And I think this is really off topic, but like I think Aquaman tried to do that a little bit.
Sure.
I did not like Aquaman. I thought it was very boring. The movie Aquaman I thought was very, very boring. Please don't come at me. But it was...
For me, it was one of those movies where, like, when you're watching it, you're like, yeah, this is good, I'm enjoying this. But then, like, after you watch it, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, what happened in that movie?
It was one of those things that I was watching it in theaters with my dad, because he's the one who I go to comic book films with. But I was watching it, and I'm like, at the climax, I'm like, has this movie been 5 hours long?
It might, honestly.
Because it feels like, this feels so long. And I get out, and it's like, oh, no, it was like 2.5 hours. Like, oh, boy. That
I mean, the Snyder Cut was 5 hours.
Oh, Aquaman.
But
yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, you brought up a good point about like darkness and stuff like that, or like how, like you do like a bit of comedy and like humor and lightheartedness sometimes, and I like a bit of both. Like, I grew up a fan of like Spider-Man, but also Batman. But, like, you can go a bit too far, and I feel like a lot of, like, the Snyder movies, in my opinion at least, like Batman vs. Superman, like, it did kind of go a bit too dark or whatever, because, like, you got Batman, like, killing and being like, oh, so dark and gritty and, like, nonstop, and then, like, as opposed to, like, dark, but not, like, over the top, but it kind of feels like almost like a parody of, like, dark stuff. And I think one of the things I loved about like Daredevil, the Netflix show, is how like it was pretty dark, but it wasn't like too over the top or whatever, in my opinion.
Through and through, like if you look at this classic comics, not as much, they're more adventure swashbuckly, but as it goes on, and especially like when Frank Miller joins the fray, it definitely like starts, he becomes very much like this like dark, like constantly like Miller. In pain and depressed like character, and so he goes through so much stuff in the comics and everything. Like having his identity outed and everything, and sort of like working through that, and losing practically everything.
That'll do it.
There's like a point in the comic where one of his like ex-wives, like, basically he can't be around her because like she's been like fear toxined and stuff, so like whenever he's near her, like things don't go well, so all the tragedy and stuff. There's even like a point of like a newer comic, well, I say newer, but it's like over 10 years old. But there's this run, there's this great comic writer, his name is Mark Waid. He's done a lot of really great stuff. One of his most notable comics is from DC, it's Kingdom Come, but from the 90s, but yeah, his Daredevil run is sort of like is a cool like subversion because he sort of like gets back at that classic era of Daredevil where he's more swashbuckly and more like happy seeming, but really the whole twist of it is that he's putting on an act. Really, he's not any better than he was before. It still is this dark tale. But the thing about Daredevil is that even though it's very much like these dark stories of unrelentingness towards Matt and his life and everything and all these hardships and stuff. He's been to prison like 3 times, man. But like this resilience that we were talking about earlier, this like not wanting to give up and everything. He's constantly like out there doing his thing no matter what happens. He's died before. He's went to hell and he came back, but he's still out there being Daredevil. So it's very much like inspirational in the fact that no matter what happens, he's always still very devoted and driven to sort of protecting the innocence of the city and everything. And so I think that's one of the things that sort of makes him such an endearing character. His devotion is so strong, and he's unwavering in that fact that it really makes for some powerful stories. He's very much like an underdog, no matter what life throws at him, he's always back up in the ring, fighting and stuff. So it's really impressive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like Captain America, I can do this all day. Very inspiring.
I think I read a quote somewhere, I can't remember it specifically, but it was, kind of a guide to writing angsty things. And it was that you have to have the sun shine sometimes to make the darkness seem worse. Mm-hmm. So having moments of levity and humor is what makes, like, tragedies seem more tragic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's sort of like the Shakespeare mentality of like in his tragedies
very
having
good
like,
point.
a brief like break where a clown or a mime or whoever shows up and stuff before it's back to the tragedy and stuff, sort of like to give the audience a bit of a break, but also to sort of like lift them back up so they can drop them, even harder or something like that. So it's definitely definitely something that I feel like Daredevil is it definitely has that energy too of like some of the uplifting moments and then back to the darkness sometimes.
I'm glad you brought that up because like there's something that a lot of writers seem to take advantage of whenever it like Matt Murdock's like wallowing like in darkness and there's like that shining bit of light and then like you said, Star, like it makes like the darkness like even like have more weight to it. And something I even like recognized like when I went to re-listen to this is on Audio Anomaly, this YouTube channel
I
right
gotta
here.
check
Go
that
and
out.
check
What
it
is
out immediately. It's the the Daredevil story that was released on here a while back. But there's like a particular scene to where Matt and Karen are going like on a date, and like he's trying to focus on like Karen, like how she's speaking and how bubbly she sounds like in her personality, and then every once in a while like his mind drifts to like his hearing and like, oh, there's like a car getting like jacked like 2 blocks down, or like someone's like getting mugged. Like nope, just focus on Karen, just focus. And then you're thinking like, oh god, like how terrible would it be if like you actually have like that I don't want to say omnipotence, but like that knowledge of like something is going on, that like something bad is happening right now, and you know exactly where it's at, and it's like,
right?
oh, I gotta stay here.
Like it's like Superman with his like super hearing, like a similar sort of idea that way. It's like he's like always like oh wow, somebody's getting beaten up in Brazil right now, man.
I think honestly that kind of is how we all feel being able to get the news from all over the world all the time. We're fully like, we always have access to knowing the terrible things that are going on in the world. So honestly, I feel like people can kind of grasp how that feels
for sure.
on a personal level.
That's a good comparison. Yeah, we sort of like live in a time where news is so very readily available thanks to the advent of the internet that we can like see all sorts of like horrors and atrocities and stuff that happen on a daily basis quite easily, a lot more easier than like people living like even like 100 years ago could have seen. So it's definitely like sort of like hits on that feeling of like helplessness and hopelessness, like all these things, and we can't really do anything about them, just where we are and stuff. So that's definitely like something that can come up as relatable with characters like Superman and Daredevil that are always like sort of like able to hear all these things going on and stuff, and they can't be everywhere at once, and they have to try to live their lives too. So it's definitely one of those challenges that also adds a bit of drama, but also a bit of relatability too to a story like that.
Especially with algorithms, how like social media sites and stuff like that, they push like news topics to you that you are most likely to engage with, and people most of the time they engage more with like bad news, like not intentionally, but like you see like article pop up on your home feed or whatever saying like someone died or whatever, and blah blah blah. You're like, oh, that's horrible. I gotta hear more. And so like the more you click on that, the more that it gets pushed to you, and it really does make it like a very relatable like drama and like issue
absolutely.
for like the character.
So that's a really good real life connection there, Star. Yeah, that's quite deep.
you.
Yeah, that's some depth to that.
Turns out this normie is kind of
right.
smart.
I think I'll keep it. And this actually kind of reminds me. It's like somewhat off topic, but it just made me think of like, have you ever seen the movie Jumper?
Yeah.
Starring Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson. When he becomes like his grown version of himself, being Hayden Christensen, he's like all rich and like he barely like even moves like physically. He just teleports all over the place. He jumps and he like turns on the news and you see like this whole flood that's going on in like this country, and you've already seen like he's got like pictures of like all the places that he jumps to. It's like all over the world, but there's like this country that's being flooded. People are like suffering as like they're being caught in like this current, and he's just sitting there just like, it's just so sad.
Yeah.
But it's like fucking asshole. He's like, you could be saving them right now. Yeah, I got like popcorn to eat.
It's gonna expire in a few days.
That's the unfortunate thing is with all the suffering that we experience all the time, there's this sense of apathy that takes over, that we're just like, well, there's nothing I can do, so why should I bother to try?
Yeah.
That's right, I'm getting things deep on here. Did you expect that from me?
We've traveled some interesting places this podcast, talking about sort of real life, sort of tragedy and stuff, and religion and everything. Who would have thought, a podcast about a guy that, wears a red devil suit is really getting deep.
Just on a spin-off religion cast.
Religion
Philosophy theory.
Yeah, the stuff that like game theory is too scared to touch.
To try to get back on topic, again, don't know much about Daredevil, but I do find his outfit to be quite funny.
It is a classic. Yeah.
Wait, which one?
I think the one in the comics, at least the original one, which is like the red spandex.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
yellow.
There's a bunch of different.
When does he wear like the
I was about
red
to say-
spandex?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like you're gonna have to be very specific.
I'll have to look
like
up
the meme.
because there's just whenever I think about him, I think of like, it's like a 50s drawing of like a little kid wearing a red devil like onesie.
Oh, I love it.
And whenever I hear Daredevil, that's automatically what I think of, except with like the same body proportions, but with like a grown, handsome man's face, with like stubble and sunglasses.
I love it.
Well, I think it looks cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree, especially if like you can work around like making it look like, say, like like body armor, kind of like what the show does. They've even like done that like in the 90s where he's got like a red and black suit to where like he's got like, some shoulder padding or like some knee padding. And they get creative with it. But just for a little fun fact, like the original suit that Daredevil had was yellow and red. So the majority of it was yellow. The horns were yellow. The face was yellow. But like the red part was like something that you see like an old timey like wrestler wear.
He had like the black
Just
and
looked
the
it
red
up.
tank top.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah,
like a luchador.
You got the red underoos, and you got the
it's
red
beautiful.
boots, and like the red gloves. It's a very campy look. I mean, it's very
Yeah.
nostalgic looking at it. But yeah, that
Oh.
was the original design until like one day it's like, you know what, Red Devil onesie, just that's the suit
It's
now.
so good.
Well, I actually saw a clip of Stan Lee talking about it. He was talking about how, like, he had people telling him way back then that, like, oh, we love the character, but we don't like the yellow suit. It looks kind of silly.
Make it
And
red.
Stan Lee said, okay, well,
Yeah.
well I was like,
Yeah.
what if we just make it red?
It worked.
Yeah.
He
He
used to have a
Yo,
D
he
on his
jokes like,
chest.
that was the amount of
There's
thought
a
that
really
put
good
into
sort of
it.
like modern interpretation of like the classic sort of red suit and everything from a comic a few years ago. The a pretty notable comic run by this guy named Chip Zdarsky. He's a Canadian guy. Sadly, Victor isn't here to sing his praise as a fellow Canadian, but yeah, no.
Betrayed his
Yes.
people once
Oh,
again.
Victor. But the artist Marco Cicchetto, really talented guy. He's doing the art for Ultimate Spider-Man right now, and he did the art for Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run. I think it was like 2019. It was really recent. And yeah, sort of the suit in there, if you look up like Marco Cicchetto, Daredevil, like that, like looks really good. Like it's still like the red suit, but it has like sort of defined lines and stuff like that. It's really good stuff. So I do, as silly as it is a cool suit too. I can't help but love and enjoy the classic suits, whether it be the red one or the yellow one as well. We had to adapt it for our audio drama. I knew we had to go yellow, so red suit one day, but you know. Had to give up.
And hey, if some superheroes can wear underwear on the outside, then let my man Daredevil wear like a
exactly,
yellow
yeah.
like wrestling suit.
It's definitely a lot of silly, fun costumes out there. I love the rainbow costumes for Batman, where he has like all the different like colors. Can't beat it.
Oh,
I
saw that
think
one.
the yellow suit definitely fits the
Yeah,
campy
of
vibe
course.
of the original
absolutely.
comics.
It sort of that at that era is more like
But
swashbuckly and stuff like that, so it fits there.
Yeah, I feel like if they had the yellow suit now, it would be a little
Yeah, right.
jarring.
Well, then it's a good thing you didn't watch
That's what you
She-Hulk.
go into?
then.
No, that was definitely like more like there's like sort of they played with the hallway scene for that a little bit with the bit there. They just sort of had fun with that, but yeah, that was definitely sort of a more like as a comedy based like series. Like I feel like it sort of fit there. They surprisingly adapted the yellow suit to live action. We all thought it would never happen, but it did. Yeah.
Oh, they did it in She-Hulk. I thought they were
no.
doing it in the new
No, I
like,
don't
Daredevil
think
show.
They
so.
referenced it in. Yeah, I don't think they're. I don't
That's
think
probably
they're
a
gonna
good
go
thing.
that far because they reference it in the trailer, and there's like 4 like helmets for Daredevil. Like one's black, one's red, one's yellow, and like one's silver.
Silver, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they're gonna do that. I think that worked fine in She-Hulk because of like
Yeah.
the tone of like the
Yeah.
comedic nature of it. I appreciate like the. And I think that's probably like the best places where it's gonna stay, because like Daredevil Born Again, it's like it's advertised as like we're going back to the roots of like the
Oh,
Netflix
yeah.
like Daredevil. This is gonna be dark. It's gonna be gritty.
Foggy's
it's gonna
got a
be
beard
bloody.
now. It's getting crazy.
We're Foggy has got a beard. The stakes have been raised. So yeah, I don't think like they're gonna go back in the direction of the yellow suit. That and also like I mean I appreciate like the effort of putting like the yellow suit like in She-Hulk. Not so much the writing of the show, but there was an effort that was made, and I think that's it's good where it's at.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just leave it there. But yeah,
What did you guys think, out of curiosity, of how they brought Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, into the Hawkeye show? Because it kind of felt underwhelming how like they like brought him into the show, set him up, and then just like had him like lose. Like,
It's not just-
it's just like one episode.
it's not just that. They also did like the same thing.
Yeah,
for
but I guess
Echo,
that was
too,
more like
if you
just
haven't
setting up
seen
like the
that.
Devil's Reign stuff with him, campaigning and everything like that. But yeah, definitely sort of we've had a fair bit of underwhelming after season 3 of Daredevil. We've had like the underwhelming sort of MCU appearances so far. So I'm sure that that'll change with Born Again. But yeah, it's sort of not a lot of strong stuff from Kingpin currently, sadly.
Yeah, it kind of like in Hawkeye, it kind of just feels like they just like added.
Like,
him
oh
in,
wait,
like,
we need
near
a
the
bald
end,
guy.
because,
Wait,
like,
hold on.
They Yeah, like they're alluding to like there's like someone like bigger behind like Kate Bishop's mom's like dealings, right? And then like Hawkeye is just like out of nowhere is like oh great, well now we got to deal with Kingpin. Who's Kingpin? That's the guy I was worried about. I was hoping not to run into him, which is very weird because like given in the context, and I do apologize, cartoon, but this is going to be spoilers for season 3.
That's fine.
Yeah, Daredevil does. He makes a deal with Kingpin, like after he beats him up, and because Kingpin's trying to get him to kill him, so he he's trying to like fuck with him, but he says, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. You're not gonna destroy who I am. So here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna go back to prison, and you're gonna stay there. Otherwise, I will go after your wife and put her in prison. And I'm gonna make you both miserable. And so Kingpin says, well, he takes the deal, and he's supposed to stay in there. But then, if this is supposed to be within the same continuity, he's like, did like fucking what's her name? I can't.
Vanessa?
Melissa. Is it Melissa?
No,
Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Like, did she? Yeah. I was just thinking like, you embarrassed me. I'm wondering, like, did she just like die in between shows, just off screen? And it's like, Vanessa has unfortunately passed away. Well, back to it,
guys.
Yeah, it's just
someone.
So,
as someone who's into this, sorry, are you so?
Yeah, it just seems confusing to me. Like what's going to be like the motivation for him to like come out of prison, be Kingpin again, and then you get up to Echo to where like Echo like kind of like tones him down a bit to where he goes into his campaign of being mayor, and then obviously he's going to be bad as mayor again. So like what happened in between shows to where Daredevil's like well, he got one over me. I guess I can't really like hold him down any longer in prison.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
And so he's able to run for mayor again after like everything that happened in like the Netflix show. Like I haven't seen season 3, so maybe like his reputation was changed in season 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. But like in season 1, he did get exposed for being like a big crime boss and whatnot. Yeah. And
I mean, you know how politics
so like people just like kind of forgot or something. Or
I was just about to say like, do you realize like everybody knows that politics are corrupt. There have been like multiple occasions to where they've been like caught red-handed on stuff, and they get slaps on the wrist and like, hey, and like next year I'm running for mayor. Oh, hey, I love that guy.
He commit a lot of crimes, but he's great.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Everyone has their flaws.
He holds up babies and he gives them kisses, and you know that guy's just the best. Even though he like did like multiple like drug runs.
I mean,
hey, you know what? You know what? That guy, he loves. Yeah, the FBI knew also about that.
I'm trying not to get political again.
It's like
as someone who's
Bruce Banner holding back
into the Spider. As someone who's into the Spider-Verse before. Like checking out the Netflix Daredevil show, just because I'm thinking this because you mentioned Vanessa. I was kind of surprised how like this version of Vanessa in the Netflix show like was kind of okay with like other like crime, the bad stuff that Kingpin does, and at the end of the season 1 at least, like kind of almost shield him out kind of or whatever, at least kind of. Because I was kind of expecting it to be like the opposite, because in Into the Spider-Verse, the thing is like she leaves him after seeing him fighting Spider-Man. So I was kind of surprised, actually, how like the show like has her character.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, it's honestly
kind of a different take.
Sort of refreshing, like sort of like it's sort of like a typical sort of like I guess trope wherever like you've got a character that's like doing all these bad things and stuff, and they have like a partner or whatever that doesn't know about their other wife, and when it finds out, it blows up into a big drama. But it's kind of fun like seeing like that sort of angle. like them sort of working together and stuff like that, and like, oh, actually, yeah, crime is pretty cool, let's do this, will we, and stuff. That sort of a little like not to the same degree, but kind of like Skylar in Breaking Bad, where she's like, eventually starts playing along with like his sort of little empire for a bit. But I like that. I thought that was unexpected, but a nice surprise, and especially like you said, and Into the Spider-Verse, a lot different sort of a take than that. So I thought that was cool.
Out of curiosity,
sorry, go ahead.
I know you guys kind of know comics and stuff more than me. So do you know like how it was originally in the comics? Was it more like the Netflix show's version of like the Vanessa Kingpin thing, or was it more like the Spider-Verse version, like originally? Out of curiosity.
From what I remember, I want to say like originally it was more along like the lines of like the Spider-Verse, to where like Vanessa like finds out because like Kingpin had like trouble like with being a father for his son. That's like probably like the extent of my knowledge. I think that's like the route that they went, to where like he has a son and like his wife doesn't want him to be around it. So it was definitely a surprise on like Netflix, to where like Vanessa's kind of like along for the ride, to where it's more of like giving the bad guy permission, even more permission, encouragement to be the bad guy.
Yeah, I hope they bring in this one one day. That'd be cool. He's a pretty interesting character. He becomes like this sort of this other like sort of underrated villain called the Rose, and he's pretty cool. He sort of is all about like trying to topple Kingpin's empire, and it ultimately leads to some interesting places in 80s Spider-Man comics. So that's fun stuff. But yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think Hatter's on the mark there. I don't remember too much about Vanessa in the comics or anything, but I feel like that's probably like the route that they went. I'd imagine. Yeah.
Kingpin is such an interesting character, like in so many different ways. Like, it's like basically one of the only characters too that like both Marvel and Sony like are able to like use like however way that they want. Because when being technically both Daredevil
sort of like,
and a Spider-Man villain.
The like the weird sort of like thing with like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, where they're both X-Men characters and Avengers characters. So, like they have like some sort of like weird like stuff they can do and everything that they can like tread. They have to tread lightly, I'm sure, but they have like more like control over there. Like both of them have like sort of some semblance of control. So that's a good point. Yeah, Kingpin definitely walks that line too between Sony and Marvel Studios like that. So that's a good point.
Well, the time has come, my friends. I want to say thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, and thank you very much for speaking. It's very nice to hear like people's different opinions and like people's different takes on superheroes like this. And yeah, we hope to hear more from you guys. And we're looking very forward to Daredevil Born Again. So check us out later when we give our thoughts on that. Do you want us to review that? Let us know, and we might monetize that. We may not. So it depends on how much attention this gets. So you are warned. But as
I would watch it.
Yeah, I would watch that too. But thank you very much for coming on to this podcast. As always, I have been your host, the Funny Hatter, and today with me has been Space Wiz, the Christopher, Star Lee, and Cartoon Post. Is there anything that you guys would like to advertise before we depart?
I have a YouTube channel, Starly VA, which will probably be tagged in the
check it out,
the description. But I'm also in ValiantShadow Productions. Audio drama, superhero audio drama, Apex Shadow as the lead character Kate Kavanaugh.
One of the best.
And that's a lot of fun, so you should definitely go check that out. Check out Joe Buzlinski's work. He's fantastic. And I have some posts of my own. I have some videos of my own, so if you want to check those out, I would really appreciate it.
Nice. Yeah, and so I have my own channel too on YouTube. I mostly make videos about SpongeBob. Working on like a iceberg video right now about the show. But like about a year ago, I made a video basically about Marvel animation. like basically reviewing like all the like main biggest like animated shows like Spectacular Spider-Man, Avengers Assemble, Avengers Host Mighty Zeros, both of those, one being better than the other in my opinion. But so if you guys like Marvel, I would recommend that video of my own. I think it's pretty good in my humble opinion.
I gotta check this out. It sounds exciting. That's awesome. Both of those will, all that stuff actually will be in the description. Yes, please do check it out, or else I'll find you and I'll make you watch it.
Yep. And then it'll be like a whole scene from Clockwork Orange to where you're forced to watch everything while you have eye droplets put in to make sure you're keeping watch and your eyes don't dry.
It's the only way.
It's the only way. It's the only way. But on that note, thank you very much for listening. Please listen to us in the future. Share this out. Yes, please like and subscribe and share with all your fucking friends. I have to keep saying that, otherwise people aren't going to do it. But thanks again for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Everybody say bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Yay.
Wake me up inside. I can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Call my name and save me from the dark. Wake me up. Bid my blood to rise. I can't wake up before I come undone. Save me from the nothing I've become.
This is my city, and I will protect it from those who seek to destroy it. I am the...
Batman!
What?
You're blind, and you use sonar to see. Just like bats.